Hello and welcome to Forever Sports. And a day after Rassie Erasmus announced his 37-man squad for the Rugby Championship, there is lots of debate, lots of analysis, and lots of conversation regarding the 37 players he has selected and the players he has not selected for the first two tests in August. And today what we're going to be doing is looking at a bit of an age breakdown of the squad that he has picked and kind of sort of noting a couple of key selections and looking at key players that we need to basically monitor during the Rugby Championship from an age profile. And basically, I think what we'll start to understand is why certain players are being preferred to others and also sort of more players that are being pushed through and kind of what the long-term thinking is. And I think the more you look at it, the more you can kind of see where the players they are in red, but also who could potentially replace them, so that we're kind of looking at always trying to keep our squad at the highest level and with experience whilst preparing for the future. Before we do that, please do smash the like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. Let's get into it, shall we? Right, what we've got over there is the squad. And the number on the right of, or the middle of right, basically second on the right, is the current age now. That's the age those players are right now. And the numbers in the colors are the age that will be at the start of the World Cup. And basically, I've said that as long as they're sort of basically 30 and below, they're in the green, 30 to 35, they're in the orange, and 35 plus, they're kind of in the red. Not to say that they can't be there, but those sort of, once you get to 35 plus, you kind of then having to go on a case-by-case basis with regards to whether you're still at the level and fit enough and fast enough, etc., to play at the World Cup. In your early 30s, that's not an issue. You know, you can treat in the early 30s the same as you can treat late 20s, really. You know, unless there are some serious injuries along the way, which has maybe hampered your performance, then you should be fine. Interestingly enough, actually, I was listening to the Jim Hamilton podcast with Johan van Kraan earlier, and he was speaking about the fact that even those long-term injuries, he said with modern sports science, those injuries can actually prolong your career because it forces you to take that sort of year break almost, or 9-month break. And he says if you use that time effectively, you can actually prolong your career to maybe even longer what it would have been before your injury if you do it properly. So a very interesting sort of perspective. I think the main thing is that what we're seeing from sort of sports science the likes is sports are playing later and later into their careers. And we've got a weird obsession in this country where as soon as players get to 30 years old, we've got to bin them. It's bizarre. I mean, I've had people saying that Kwaka Smith should not be in the squad. He's too old. And you're looking at him and thinking, he's 32 years old. He'll be 34 at the next World Cup. That's not even old. You know, and it's just a bit of a weird sort of mentality that I think that we've just got, that we're so obsessed with youngsters and we're so obsessed with youth that we look at 30 years old as old. And 30 years old is not old. As I said, from 35 onwards, then you're kind of looking at your case-to-case basis. But, I mean, if somebody retires at 32 years old, that's retiring young. As I said, you got Dion Ferree pushing 40. You've got, it's people like Dwayne Vermeulen, for example. You know, I think it was, 38 when he started in the World Cup final and was absolutely superb. So you can play long into your careers over here. In fact, nobody on this list will actually be 38 come the next World Cup. So everyone here would actually be younger than our oldest player at the 2023 World Cup, which is a very interesting point. But let's go do it. So if you look at our props, for example, the big sort of literal red flag is Vincent Koch, who's currently 35 years old and will be 37 at the next World Cup. Now, he's under a bit of pressure given the performance over the weekend, that he just didn't have much impact. What for me is very interesting is you're looking at him as, 35, 20, 37. Francois Herbert in a similar age bracket. So now you're thinking, right, well, if those two don't get to the next World Cup, who are next options? You've got Wilco Louw. He's currently 31. He'll be 33 at the next World Cup. Absolutely perfect age. Then you've got Asenate Ntlabakanya, 26 years old now, 28 at the next World Cup. So whilst you've already got, for example, a Wilco Louw, Vincent Koch, be sort of highlighted as one of the older players, you can already see the literal succession plan as you go down from an age point of view. Similarly, when it comes to our loose heads all very young actually in the squad. Oxenchezi is 30 years old, Bowen Finn is 28, Jan Javes is 24, Gerard Steenekamp and Ntutuka Nkunu both in their sort of 20s as well. So no issue there at loose head whatsoever. Again, if you look at hooker, for example, you've got Malcolm Marks, he'll be 33 at the next World Cup. Bongi Manambi will be 36, so it is sort of more on the radar with regards to what we're thinking about him. Again, all of a sudden enter Marnus van der Merwe. 28 years old, will be 30 at the next World Cup, will be in his prime years, really. The big question marks become our locks, with the two sort of, basically cupboard holding them, the two different over there. Yeben Etzebeth, currently 33 years old, will be 35 at the next World Cup. Franco Master, 34, will be 36 at the next World Cup. Personally, I don't think they're looking off the pace. You know, somebody said that Eben Etzebeth didn't look amazing over the weekend. He's allowed to have off games, but also I think the biggest problem when it comes to Eben Etzebeth is that we judge him on Eben Etzebeth standards. You know, and if he's not playing as probably the best number 4 lock in the world every single game, we start to wonder. Now, I'm not worried about any of these locks, but what I will say is that Ruan Nokia is the clear succession plan. Kobus Wiese is there, and they could be a number 4, number 5 combination. Yes, Kobus Wiese also now potentially covering the flanks, but you've already got two players in this squad right now who cover those age brackets very, very well. So Arcus Neyman is the youngest of the Fab Four. But again, we've got young players. If we go to our back row, this particular for the Rugby Championship, it is an older back row. That's in many ways why I was a bit surprised at Vincent Tuka not being kept. We do have Albert Lowe is currently injured. We do have Cameron Hardekolm is currently injured. You know, and I think those are obviously quite clean players. Evan Roos being released. But Sia Cleese will be 36 at the next World Cup. Pierce Batoy 35. And, you know, those are sort of the two sort of players. But Kwame Smith should be absolutely fine. Jean-Luc Dupré and Mark van Staden should be fine. Kobus Wiese is an option there. Jasper Wiese is fine from an age profile point of view. But again, I would have loved to have seen Vincent Tuka in and amongst those forwards because he is a very young player and will be entering the good years. You know, I think at this stage, for example, the issue wouldn't actually necessarily be the next World Cup, but kind of what happens after that, which has kind of always been a bit of the case. If we look at our scrum halves, Kobus Reinach, the oldest one, 35, but that's why we've kept Morne van den Berg, probably ahead of a Faf de Klerk. You know, it was always going to be, for me, a Grant Williams and Faf de Klerk, plus then one of either Kobus Reinach or a Faf de Klerk, you know. So Grant Williams, Morne van den Berg were always going to be, for me, in the squad from an age profile point of view, because that just makes sense. Funny enough, our best age profiles are flower halves. You know, with Andre Pollard, he's not 35. I'm not quite sure how we've ended up at 35 there. He's actually 32 years old at the moment. So he is absolutely fine from an age profile point of view. And he is the oldest of the three. Marley Liebach will be 30 at the next World Cup. In fact, Pollard's actually 31. I actually need to just add that there. So he's 31. And he'll be 37 and he'll be 33 at the next World Cup. Marley Liebach is absolutely fine. So then we look at our centers, for example. Our centers, Damon Delendi, the current oldest center in the squad. A better look over there. And he will be 35 at the next World Cup. You've got Jesse Creel, who is going to be 33 at the next World Cup. Esterhazen the same age as well. But we've got Andre Esterhazen, we've got Ethan Hooker, 24 years old, and Kaden Moody, who will be just 24 at the next World Cup. They're the same actually age as Ethan Hooker. So if you then look at our outside backs, for example, and you look at a Damian Willemse, 29 in the next World Cup, Fassi 29 in the next World Cup, Kaden Moody 24 the next World Cup, Edel van der Merwe 31 in the next World Cup, Chesson Colby 33, Kurt Jans 31. It's just Willie LaRue who will be 38 come the start of the next World Cup, because I think he turns 36 now in the next month, which is why inverted commas gets 3 years older. So basically, there are players who are worth monitoring, and this is kind of why I put them in red, because these are and it's not red now, it's red in the World Cup. Because right now, none of these players, bar Vincent Koch, would actually be in the red currently, and I think maybe Billy LaRue. So what we've got to do is basically almost monitor those kind of players right now, because we've got to make a call early on with regards to where they make the next World Cup. And that's why we haven't seen, for example, a Makazole Mapimpi in the squad. Because as good as Rugby is playing, the next World Cup, I think he's going to be about 38 years old. And as a wing, will he have the pace? He might actually still have the pace. You never know. And he's not been discarded, but he's going to have to keep showing year on year out that he's still got that kind of level. At the moment, I just don't think he's ahead of our three wings. Done absolutely nothing wrong as Makazole Mapimpi. But interesting, if we look at then the averages and some of the stats here, the average age of the current squad is 30, which a lot of people will say is very old. 30 years old and sort of 30 caps is your golden age to win World Cups. So in 2 years' time, 32 of if the current squad, the average age will be 32. Now, I personally think that we will see a couple of different players. Now, if you took Willie LaRue out of the squad, for example, if you took Vincent Koch out of the squad, if you took Kobus Reinach out of the squad, to bring this down to a 34, 33-man squad, that average age will probably return to about 31. And you're probably looking at okay, to be honest, over there. At the moment, we have got 17 players in the squad who are 30 plus, 3 players who are 35 plus, so 3 players who are kind of in the not so sure, and 18 players below 30, which means the majority of our squad is below the age of 30. So if you are completely age obsessed and you think 30 is too old, of course there's reason to panic, but you shouldn't be, because again, players play fantastic rugby. I mean, Peter Steph-Toy is the current World Player of the Year. World Player of the Year, and he's 32 years old. He was doing that at 31 years old. You know, that is what we need to basically focus on. The fact that he's playing at that kind of level at 31 years old, which means that 31, 32 is not old. 34 is not old. I think it was Ronan O'Gara, I mentioned it earlier in this week, was speaking on a podcast about Owen Farrell, and he said that, you know, he's 32 years old, he's still young. He said, especially as a fly half. You look at Finn Russell and the kind of rugby he's playing at the age he is. So we basically just need to sort of really get over the fact. And I think the problem is we kind of get bored of players, you know. And we're so excited about the new players and newbies that we kind of go, oh, yeah, but, you know, we need the new faces. We need the new faces. Not so much from they're much better, but we kind of we like something new. And this is why, for example, I've been quite just blown away by the amount of people asking why Damian Williams is in the squad. And I'm going, you know, if you think that Apelele Fassi has played better and that he should be in the 15 jersey, by all means, why is Damian Williams in the squad? Damian Williams at the World Cup a few years ago was within the top 10 best players in the world. And I think was probably one of our top 3 most important players during that World Cup. He's 27 years old. He's just come back after a year's injury. He's had, 2 games in a Boks jersey. And not bad games either. You know, not his best games, but not bad games. No one said they're going, oh, hang on, he hasn't come back yet. So it's a weird sort of mentality. You've just got to try and sort of remind ourselves consistently that these players, some of them are getting older, but a lot of them are still at this level. And until younger players take that jersey off them, that's another good point. You know, it's all very well saying, ooh, Eben might have been a bit slow this past weekend, which I don't think he was. But has Salman Murat, for example, done enough to take that jersey off him? You know, Vinny LaRue, for example, is somebody that is going to move on because Fassi and Damian Williams and even Quan Horn are going to take that jersey off him. You know, and he's going to struggle to make him to the squad. But until the younger players take the jerseys away from the older players, it's their jersey, really. You know, and they deserve that spot in the squad. So that's a bit of a breakdown. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments below. Smash a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steve. I'll chat to you soon.